surfboard as well. Yeah, exactly. When you think about things that are built to be in the water, they often have a similar shape. And if you want to look more into that, you can look up more about hydrofoils as well. Okay, so let's see if we can remember what we've just learned. So air flows faster when? Can you finish the sentence? Okay. So it can be, especially if you haven't done this before, it can be a bit confusing when we're talking about the air pressure goes up and the speed is doing this, and we're saying all these different things. So see if you can remember. And in a second, I will show you how we can make a model aerofoil. And you can either just watch or you can have a go. Or if you want to have a go but you don't have the things in, then you can just watch the recording back another day and follow along another day. Because we're still going to be doing flight for like 3 more weeks. Yes. So someone has asked, so you need low air pressure to lift. Yeah. So low pressure, like a low air pressure over the top of the thing that's lifting, the wing, for example, and high pressure underneath the wing. And that will create lift. Okay, 10 seconds, and then we will reveal the answer if you haven't voted already, and we will start looking at making our model aerofoil. Yeah, if we use the word velocity, by the way, just for anyone who might not be familiar, it just means how fast the air is moving, basically, in distance per unit of time. So, for example, meters per second, the velocity would be like how fast is that air moving, and then whatever unit of time we're using. So often when you see what is Bernoulli's principle, you'll see that they're talking about velocity and air pressure. And remember, it just means how fast the air is moving over time. Okay, so the answer was A, over the top of a plane's wing. Okay, so basically the air, remember, should be moving faster over the top and slower underneath. Okay, so let's have a go then at making this model aerofoil. So what I will do is change my camera over. I'll just leave this up for just a couple more seconds in case anyone needs to go and gather anything if you do have the things, but I'll show you how it works anyway. So don't worry if you don't. It might be useful as well to have something like a hole puncher. I don't actually own a hole puncher, but I feel like lots of you guys will. I feel like a lot of home editors will have all sorts of things like this. But I do not. But that might be handy, possibly. Or something to make a hole in card with safely, or the help of an adult, because it can be pretty tricky to do, actually. But I will explain as I go along. Okay, so what I will do is I will switch over my camera and let's have a look. It's fairly simple. There's a few bits which were a little bit fiddly, but it's mostly fairly simple, I would say. Okay, so okay, let's sort out my camera so you can see what's going on as well. Okay. Can I make this a bit lighter? Okay, so I'll explain what I'm using here because I know it's hard to tell. This is my card, right? So this is like thicker card rather than paper, that's what you want to use for the first stage that I'm going to show you how to do. Other options that you could use, instead of actually having a piece of card, you could use a piece of thin cardboard, but it does need to be thin, you'll see, because we need to fold it. Possibly something like the side of a cardboard cereal box, something like that might be thin enough as well if you don't have like a piece of card. Experiment, see what you can find. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mark out, it doesn't really need to be exact, to be honest, but I'm going to cut this into a smaller piece, right? So I'm going to say maybe just to give myself, so this is like an A4, you know, like a regular size piece of card. I'm going to maybe cut like a rectangle kind of like this out from it. Again, it doesn't really need to be super neat, but you don't want it to be too big because it just might find it slightly more difficult to lift when we do the experiment. But yeah, so I'm going to cut kind of a rough rectangle out to begin with. Okay, so I've got a piece kind of that sort of size. Someone says they're craving cereal now. I think I spend my life in a permanent state of craving cereal, to be honest. Okay, so once we've got a square like this, okay, I find it quite helpful, okay, to, again, you might not be able to do this very easily if you have got like a bit of cereal box or something like that. But basically when you fold it, I want you to think about not folding it perfectly in half, okay? Because what we want to happen, right, is we want to fold it. So remember, we've got like a curved bit on top and flat on the bottom, right? We're not actually just folding in half. So to help me do this, I kind of draw a line that's like, so one sort of rectangle is bigger than the other, if you see what I mean, just to give me a bit of a guide. So like if I'm going to fold this, I would be folding it like from that line, if you see what I mean. We don't want it to be folded in half. If that makes sense, I'll show you. So for example, if I was going to try, and it can be a little bit tricky if you've got thicker card, and obviously if I fold that, do you see how the top edge is obviously longer? So like this, for example, that's correct. That's what you want, because what you want to do, fold it, flatten it a bit, and then we're going to tape it. So you're going to kind of curve that and tape it like this. Does that make sense? So if you have someone to hold it, it can be helpful. You see this longer piece comes over the top, longer, I keep nearly saying half, but it's not half. Longer section, fold it over, and you'll have to kind of, to get those to meet, you'll have to obviously bend it. That's correct, because you want that shape where it's like this. Okay, so I find it helpful, like I said, just to repeat again, think of a line that's kind of like got more this side than this side. It's not down the middle. And then fold it over from that, so that if you just would fold in half, it would be like this. Bend along the side to meet the edges together, so that when we tape it in a second, it forms this shape. And what shape is that? You should hopefully recognize it when you look at it like this. It's an aerofoil. Perfect. Right, so mine's obviously going to ping back. That's okay. But that's how I'm going to tape it along here. If you've got someone like who can hold it while you tape it, that will be helpful. But if not, it is possible. I need an assistant or something, don't I? It can just hold bits for me. Right, I'm just getting some tape, and I'm going to try It doesn't really need to be super like neat, by the way, as long as it holds together. Okay. So if you kind of tape across and then get a little bit more tape just to make sure it holds. Someone said I should use like a trained squirrel or something. Not sure you can have a pet squirrel. Although people have pet chipmunks and things like that, don't they? Especially in America. It's not very common. They tend to have more of those sorts of pet raccoons. I did know someone once who actually had a pet raccoon, mind you. Okay, and then I'm just going to put one more again. We're just tape like this. I'm just going to put one more bit of tape here. You do want to try and leave. See, even that, I've kind of done that bit too. Hang on. Leave a little bit there. You want to leave like an area here, so don't cover it totally with tape. You don't need to anyway. It just needs to be held together because we need to poke a hole through like this sort of area. It can be slightly higher up, but yeah, that sort of area. Okay. And then I'll just do one more bit of tape. Okay, so we've got our basic aerofoil shape. Again, the bottom is straight, the top is curved. Don't worry if it's not like exactly as curved or straight as mine, as long as there's a clear difference, if you know what I mean. So it's obvious that the top is more curved than the bottom. Okay, so the next thing that we want to do is, well, you've got two options actually. If you've got like paper straws, you can just cut it. This is just a cut paper straw that's cut to around this sort of size, right? If you don't, that is fine. What you can do is just easily make your own straw by getting a pencil or a pen and wrapping some paper around it and taping it. So, for example, and this is the bit which I found a bit fiddly, but it's not too bad. So, actually, what I might do is cut this down slightly more. So, this is just regular paper, thin paper. It's not card. So this is for the paper straw bit. So you could just wrap it around a pencil or a pen. So and then tape it. You just want to kind of try and get it quite tight. If you see what I mean, I'm going to tape it while it's on here. Oh, goodness me, I've got tape. Tape stuck to me. And then we've kind of got a mini straw anyway. You see, because then you can just take it off and we have a little straw. Cool. Okay, so yeah, so you can either use a chopped straw or use your own little straw. We might need to cut it down later. We will see. Okay, this is the bit where please be very, very careful because we wanted to create a hole that goes through here, through to the other side. So I have found that you can do this with something like scissors and poke it through, but you obviously need to be very careful. Please get an adult to help you do it. What you can do as well is get your clump of Play-Doh, for example. Put that to protect the table. Do not hold it under here because you'll stab your hand, and poke whatever you're using through here so it doesn't damage the table or your other hand. So yeah, you could also use like a knife or something like that. Just need to be very careful. Okay, so I'm going to just going to hold this over here, and I'm just going to poke a hole through. It doesn't actually need to be like a perfect hole. It can just be like so. So again, it needs to go all the way through. And then you can use like a pencil or a pen to kind of wiggle that and make it bigger. Just as big as like a pencil or a bit bigger, basically. So you might need to do one side at a time. Because it needs to be big enough where our straw, whether it's your makeshift straw or your bit of paper straw, needs to be able to fit through. See what I mean? So, like so. You'd end up like this. This is the bit that I find a little bit tricky with this, although it does work. What I would say is if you're struggling to get like the makeshift paper straw through, I did manage to do it yesterday, but put more tape on it to like reinforce the edges so they stay down, if you know what I mean. And then it'll be easier to poke it through. Also, you want this to like be able to move, but not just fall out. So you can always use a little bit of tape around the edge or glue or something to like hold it so that it doesn't, you don't just want it to fall out. You see what I mean? That's the end result that you want, right? Okay, we are nearly there. Now, get your skewer and put that through the center. And we come back to our big chunk of Play-Doh or clay or whatever you're using and put that in a big clump and poke the pointy end of your skewer down into that with this hooked on. I'll show you from the side in a second as well. Anyway. You might want to also, which I might actually do now, you only really want a little bit of the straw poking out from each side. So I am actually going to just cut my straw down very slightly because I don't really want it to be too heavy, right? Because if it's too heavy, it's just going to find it harder to work. So that's a little bit better. Okay, and now put it over the top. Okay, now once you've got to that stage, can I show you from the sides? Oh, we're upside down. How do I upside down it? That's the question. There we go. So this is what it looks like from the side, right? Okay, now what you need to do next is get your hairdryer and blow it over this sort of side, but test it out. You might need to get it quite close. And hopefully what should happen is it should lift up. And that is because it's an aerofoil shape, which is creating this lift, right? So let's just put this back here a second. If I grab my hairdryer, let's see. Now, what's that? See if it works. So when I first tried this, I actually didn't think it worked. And then I realized I just wasn't getting close enough. I think also, obviously, if you've used a bigger bit of card or something like that, it might be heavier, so it might be hard. But let's see. I had it perfectly for a second there and it lifted and then it stopped. Hang on, let me show you. Let's see. Okay. He wants to go. I think it's because I've made my piece too long. There we go. He worked in the end. Now, I do actually know why that is. It is because I've made this a little bit long. So, as someone said, it would work better if I had, say, 2 sticks in here. But it did work. Did you see that lift? I also did it with a one a few days ago. This one, you can see it's exactly the same thing. I have cut it slightly. It's like slightly less long as well. Very crusty Play-Doh. I shouldn't have really left that out, should I? See if this one works as well. And then we will move on. But yeah, have a play around with it. As you can see, it's a bit of a learning curve to get it to work. Oh! Okay, so that one definitely works better. Again, main difference, I think, is because it's just a bit smaller. There you go. Okay, and the reason why that is working is because of this shape, right? This one does work just only when I get the angle right. It's a bit longer. But yeah, if you do make it a bit long, you could do 2 sticks in here or cut it down a bit.